Hi guys, so guess what I did at 1 o'clock last Sunday? I went to church. No, I'm just kidding. I went for a 1 o'clock showing of Alien Romulus. Forgive me, Lord, maybe next week. So, just to allay any fears that you may have, this is going to be a spoiler-free review, although you may still learn one or two things you didn't want to know just by reading between the lines of what I'm saying. You know what, enter at your own risk, but in principle, this is meant to be a spoiler-free review. I will also declare, just in case you don't know me very well, that I'm a massive Aliens fan. This is probably my favourite franchise, actually. I used to say that it was James Bond, but I've got so many Aliens-related items in my house now, and I can't say the same for James Bond. I've got about 5 Aliens novels, 1 Aliens comic, 1 Aliens t-shirt. Alien Isolation is my favourite game of all time, definitely. When it comes to James Bond, I don't really have anything to do with that franchise other than the actual movie, so it's probably time to admit to myself that Aliens is actually my favourite franchise. But I tell you all this just so you know that I do have a little bit of bias coming into this review. I mean, I'm a guy who defends Alien vs Predator Requiem, you know what I mean? So I think this franchise has definitely been going through a good spell recently. I mean, a lot of people thought that when it went to Disney, that was the end of it. You know, there'd be no more films. All the previous films would end up buried in a subfolder at the back of the Disney streaming site for you to try and find as best you can. But it's actually been completely the opposite. I mean, we've got this film, we've got a TV series coming next year. Disney have really put their backs into reviving this whole thing, and it's been utterly fantastic. Fede Alverez as well, being recruited to direct this new film, a brilliant choice for me. Don't Breathe is not one of my favourite films, but I could still appreciate a lot of the good stuff that was in that film. The fact that I don't like it is more of a taste thing. But his Evil Dead remake, absolutely phenomenal. So I was perfectly happy for him to do this film. I still would have preferred Ridley Scott, but if we can't have him, then I think Fede Alvarez was a really good choice to take over the reins. So in terms of the story for this, I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. So we've got about 6 or 7 youngsters. They're all in the same friendship circle, and they live on a mining planet owned by Weyland-Yutani. It's a very dark and horrible place. There's no sunlight on this planet ever. And these youngsters are kind of trapped in this place. They can't get out of the servitude that they have to Weyland-Yutani. They want to get to this planet that they've identified as being much nicer, but it's so far away, they'd never be able to fly there without the use of cryo chambers, which they don't have. But one day they spot on like this scanning monitor thing that they've got that there's a ship floating nearby, a decommissioned ship, and they believe that there will be abandoned cryo tubes on this thing. So they fly up to this ship, but of course once they get on it they discover that there's aliens on it, and that's when the main bulk of the film begins. This ship is actually a Weyland-Yutani research vessel that it all went to hell basically when an alien got loose in the lab or something like that. But I won't take the plot any further. I think if you've seen a trailer for this or you've read even the briefest of blurbs, you will know that this is essentially about a group of people trapped on a spaceship with the aliens. It sounds really derivative, but it's not. The story is really well written. There's lots of twists and wrinkles in the whole thing, that it's not just a case of, oh, we've got a bunch of people and one of them will get killed off every 15 minutes and, you know, the plot's nothing to write home about. It's a lot more involved and complicated than that. I thought it was really clever. It's set between Alien and Aliens, so I guess if you're going to do a full watch through of all the Aliens films from now on, you might want to think about watching Romulus straight after Alien. Funny thing is though, in terms of style, this film is actually loosely a combination of Alien and Aliens. So obviously we've got the whole haunted house in space thing with 6 or 7 characters trapped on a ship with aliens, and the connection to Aliens is more in terms of the action, because this film has a lot more action than the original Alien, but even though I still say that Aliens is a much better film than Alien Romulus, I think the action is a lot cleverer in this film. In Aliens, if you think about it, a lot of it is literally just Marines firing guns and alien limbs exploding all over the place. But all the action sequences in Alien Romulus are really kind of ingenious and well thought out. There's some great ideas that are like, sometimes action was happening in certain ways, and I was thinking, wow, that's some really great ideas are just happening right in front of me. So if you've not seen the film, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to in terms of the really big set pieces. There's some really good writing has gone into this film. I've heard it said in some of the reviews that there are way too many homages in this, and it's copying a lot too many of the other films, and it's like a greatest hits and all this bullshit. I mean, some people would say that if a film came out that had xenomorphs and pulse rifles, but I think it's a really harsh criticism to say about this film, because it definitely leaves a very distinctive mark, I think, when you place it among all the other Alien films. I mean, yeah, there are things about it that are sort of similar to the other Aliens films, but if you're going to make an Aliens film, it's going to have to be sort of similar to the other films in order to fit into the franchise, and we've already had different films in this series. Prometheus was a wild leap that was very different to all the others. Alien vs. Predator was completely different to all the other films that came before, obviously. So even if this one is a film that is more of a traditional sort of Aliens film, more the sort of film that we've come to expect from an Alien film, then it's not like we haven't already had lots of wildly different ones. If you are a dyed-in-the-wool Alien fan, there are lots of really cool Easter eggs and nods to previous films in this, way more than there were in Prometheus and Covenant, for example. And these various throwbacks, they come in all shapes and sizes, in the music, bits of dialogue, the production design. You will probably recognise certain rooms and symbols on the wall, and just little things here and there that will please you no end if you are very familiar with the older films. And actually, I'm pretty certain that they've used Alien Isolation as an inspiration for this, which was especially pleasing to me. At least twice in this, I looked at a certain room or a certain corridor and thought, that's lifted straight from Alien Isolation and not Alien. I'll give you one example. So there's like a curving corridor at one point with these windows, and a spacecraft goes past it, and the lights from the spacecraft just illuminate through each of the windows in turn. It looks glorious, but this is lifted from Alien Isolation, albeit it was actually done better in Alien Isolation. But yeah, there's so many nostalgic things to look at in this. There's only one moment where these callbacks don't work, and you may have already heard about this, so there's a cringeworthy line of dialogue, and I'm actually going to spoil it, because I feel like if you're forewarned about what this line is, it will bug you less when you get to it when you watch the movie. Because I think if you go into this film not knowing that this line is going to hit you, I think it might take you out of the movie for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to spoil it. So at one point, a character says, "Get away from her, you bitch," and it falls really flat. Like, you can just feel the groans around the cinema, and it's just too obvious a line to pick from previous films. It's too iconic a line. Only Sigourney Weaver can say that line. You can't give it to somebody else. There's another moment earlier on in the film where a character says a less famous line from a previous film. It's actually a line that even some Alien fans might have missed, because it's just not that famous, I don't think. But that worked a lot better. Make these little nods to previous films subtle. Don't throw the really iconic stuff out there. It's just not going to work as well. So let's talk about the characters a little bit. I love the final girl in this. She's played by, the name's not going to come to me, Cailee Spaeny, something like that. I might have got that wrong, maybe. She's phenomenal in this film. I mean, she very much adds her character to the long list of really strong heroines that this franchise has produced. I mean, nothing will come close to Ripley, but this character, Rain, she goes right onto the second tier, just below Ripley, alongside Noomi Rapace from Prometheus, who was also very good. I didn't think I'd seen this actress before when I was watching the film, and it turns out I had, because I looked at her Wikipedia after the film. So she was in a film in 2018 called Bad Times at the Hotel Royale or something like that. I might have got the title of the film wrong. The film itself is not very good, and I can't actually remember what role she was playing in that film, but still, I've seen her before. She's got a few good credits already. Definitely got a bright future. It's a little bit of a shame that we probably won't see her again in this franchise, because this film has an ending that doesn't really lend itself to a sequel, and this is the problem with setting a film between two others in your franchise. It doesn't leave you much wriggle room to do a sequel, if this one turns out to do really well at the box office. But I think some people listening to this will see that as a positive, because this film absolutely has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's no cliffhanger, there's no sequel baiting, there's no little thread just left dangling at the end. You'll walk out of the cinema patting your stomach, feeling nice and full that you've had a good full film, and that's it. You know what I mean? A good old-fashioned film in that regard. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the opening scenes on the planet, because they were so good, and I suspect most reviewers will skimp over this segment. But I thought it was awesome, the way that this movie starts. This mining planet, it feels like Blade Runner in space. It's so well conceived. All the crowd scenes and the way the buildings are, and all the little things that the Rain character has to go through to get her work passed and things like that. I would have really enjoyed more scenes actually on the planet. And I mean, I know that the film has to get going. We can't linger on the planet forever, because I think most people watching this film will know that we're not going to get any alien action until we get up to the spaceship. But I think if we'd had extra time on the planet, I think it would have really helped the character development in this film, because the main two characters are great. I mean, they are two of the best characters in this entire franchise for me. But beyond those top two, the rest of them are a little bit skimped over, I feel. They're a little bit underdeveloped. And bear in mind that this is already a 2-hour movie, and there's only like 6 or 7 characters in the entire thing. And so if you've got that length of runtime and only 6 characters to work on, there's no excuse really for not having all of those characters really well fleshed out. But I don't feel that's entirely the case here. And it's not like a lot of these characters get killed early. I mean, most of them get a really good shake in this film. So that's a little bit of a criticism I could level at this whole thing. But it's not a huge problem for me. This film does 2 really amazing things compared to previous films in the franchise. One of them is concerned with facehuggers. So if you've seen the trailer, you would have already seen that scene where the facehuggers burst out of the door. There's way more to that scene than what you get in the trailer, and this is quite simply the best Aliens films for facehuggers. I mean, all the films up until now, we've always had one facehugger scene in each and every one, and I guess in James Cameron's Aliens you got a little bit more with the scene with Newton Ripley trapped in that one room, which was really tense. But in this film, there's so much facehugger action. I mean, this is just the best alien facehugger film of all time. So that's another reason why it's so lazy to just call this film a recycled hits thing, because I mean, look at what they do with the facehuggers in this film, for instance. And there's also some really great stuff to do with AI in this. All the films have had some kind of android in them, apart from the Alien versus Predator films, maybe. But I feel like in this one, there's some really interesting character development with one particular android. And there's some other stuff that I don't really want to go into because it would be giving away spoilers, but it's extremely key to the plot. All things to do with synthetics in this, and I feel like it approaches the whole android side to Alien in a very new and interesting light. So I'm going to move towards wrapping up now. It's been very hard doing this review without giving spoilers away, but I've given it my best shot. I've deliberately avoided mentioning anything from the final act. I've not talked about anything that happens in the last sort of 25, 30 minutes. I'll let you discover that all for yourself, but it's a pulse-pounding finale that you get to this movie. It's really cool. Obviously, I don't have a copy of this film to show you, but this is going to be a day one purchase for me when it comes out on 4K, believe me. And what else can I say? I absolutely loved this film. I mean, it's Wednesday that I'm finishing this review. It's been like 3 days now since I saw the movie. I'm still buzzing about it. When I came out of the cinema, I was walking funny for like the first 5 minutes because I was just so kind of like knocked off my feet by what I'd seen over the past 2 hours. I still have the sound effects in my head because there's some really heavy, loud effects in this that are like dun, 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 and they're just coming out of the cinema screen at you. There's some really quiet effects that work very well. Too. There's a moment where the sound is just killed completely, and there's like a camera shot that just glides in complete silence. And I'm thinking, where's this camera going? And I won't spoil what happens, but this is one of the best soundtracks for me since those really early films. It's really cool, actually. And I think I'm going to leave it there, but I would encourage you to check this film out either at the cinema or as soon as you can. Definitely one of the very best Alien films for me. Shall we get to the bag of terror and see how I'm going to score it? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 bloody axes out of 5. That's a terrific score. I'm not going to give it the masterpiece rating. I don't think it's that. There are a few things here and there that I would have looked to have tightened up. I can't even remember the last time I gave a movie 5 out of 5 on this channel. Was it Dr. Terror's House of Horrors quite recently, actually? Well, anyway, I'm not going to give this one 5 out of 5. It's not quite that good, but it is a superb film. It's really, really cool. So I'll leave it there for today. I will quickly give you my reading update, though, because at the end of these reviews now, I've started giving an update as to what I'm doing in the world of reading in terms of my horror books, and I'm reading Stephen King's books at the moment in chronological order. So I've done Carrie, Salem's Lot. I'm currently on The Shining. So at the end of my last video, I said that I was on chapter 10 of The Shining. I'm now on chapter 17. I've advanced 7 more chapters in the last few days, so I've not got too much further since I did my last video, but I'm really enjoying the book. It's definitely the best book that King did up to this point, I think. It's so good, The Shining, honestly. Right, we'll leave it there for today. I'll be back soon to do another Amicus review. I think Tales from the Crypt is going to be my next video, and then after that I've got an Aliens ranking coming up, but it's not the conventional Aliens ranking you might be expecting, but I'll say no more for now. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.